Newlyweds Josie and Tim moved into an old house way out in the country. After they moved in, Josie and Tim had visitors who showed up late at night. They figured out that since the place had been empty for so long, it had become sort of a lover's lane. Josie was a light sleeper, and Tim could sleep through a tornado, so she was the one who heard the cars drive to the back of the house. She'd get up and peek out a kitchen window to see if she recognized any of the cars. The house had been built in the 1960s for a granny to live in and while away her last days. The house had the mid-century vibe going on, but the property had a long history. A homestead was built there in the early 1800s. The old buildings are long since gone, but in the 1940s, a barn and a shed were built on the place. They used the old barn as a garage. The house was surrounded by very large old trees and a barbed wire fence covered with brambles. The property was so overgrown that a passerby couldn't see the house, even though it was only about 50 yards from the road. They had to drive around to the back of the house and peer under the low-lying branches of the trees to see the house. The granny died in 1975, leaving the house empty. Some adult grandchildren lived in the house for a few years, then moved on, leaving the house empty again. It stayed overgrown, lonely, and empty until Josie and Tim bought it in 1995. The people who drove back and parked in their yard in the wee hours of the morning all had one thing in common. Their lights were always turned off. Josie wasn't sure she heard all of them because they often found empty liquor bottles in their backyard. When Josie did hear a car, she'd turn on the porch light to show them that someone lived in the house. The cars would slowly turn around, keeping the lights off, and leave the driveway. It was a creepy situation that reminded Josie of the story of the kids who parked on a lonely road and the man with the hook. One night around 1:30, Josie felt restless. She got up and looked out a kitchen window and saw a dark-colored van parked in their yard. She didn't hear the van drive in and had no idea how long they'd been there. She turned on the porch light and the van didn't move, so she woke Tim up. It took him a while to wake up enough to come take a look. He was fed up with the night visitors. He grabbed his shotgun, loaded it, turned off the porch light, and went outside. He aimed fairly close to the van and shot. Then he shot again and came inside to watch from a window. Very soon, the van started up and took off down the driveway. The next day, Tim put a flag on the mailbox and parked his truck in the driveway at night. People stopped sneaking in, but they still used the stretch of road in front of their house for parking. They were 3 miles off the main drag, no street lights, and pitch darkness. It was the perfect secluded place for couples. Josie could hear people parked out on the road at night, talking and laughing. It was very disturbing. Josie and Tim were determined to rehab the place inside and out. Josie worked on the inside and Tim worked outside. He removed the barbed wire fencing closest to the house and cut down lots of trees. One of his first projects was to tear down the ramshackled shed. The building was about 30 feet long and narrow, about 10 feet across. Both ends were open with heavy doors. One morning, Tim was going through the debris left in the shed. He moved some rotten plywood sheets and boards and saw something black almost completely covered with dirt. He brushed the dirt away, picked it up, and realized it was a woman's purse. He saw Josie in the yard and called her over to see what he had found. "Hey, Josie, do you want a new purse?" "Funny, you called me over here to show me a piece of junk. Wait a minute. Let's see if there's anything in it." "Watch out for spiders," he said jokingly. "You open it," she said. "Okay, give it here." Tim opened the purse. "It's empty except for this wallet. I'll look inside and see if there's any money in it." "No, nothing but a driver's license of some woman. Just junk," he said as he tossed it on a pile to burn. "Wait a minute, let me see that," Josie said as she went over and picked up the purse and wallet. "This looks suspicious. Why would there be a purse hidden in this shed with a driver's license in it? The date it was issued is 1969. I think we should show it to the police. There isn't a police station here, Josie. Well, how about the state police then? Why bother them? The license is old. Some kid was probably playing with the purse and lost it in the shed. I'm keeping it. I'm going to call your brother and see if he can find out anything about Erin Dolby, Josie said as she examined the license. Suit yourself, he said. Josie went into the house and called Tim's older brother Bryce. He listened to Erin's story and was intrigued by the driver's license. Later that day, Bryce showed up. Bryce, do you think this purse could be tied to a horrible crime or even a murder? Josie asked him. You never know. Why would a driver's license be hidden behind some boards in an old shed for 26 years? A license tells us a lot. We know her age in 1969, when it was issued, of course. Height, weight, hair, and eye color, and most importantly, her name and address. 1969 was a long time ago. First, I'll drive by this address and see if her last name is on the mailbox. I hope so. If you find her, ask her how her wallet got hidden in a shed all the way out here, Tim said. I have a bad feeling about this, Josie said, looking worried. I should know something by tomorrow night. I'll give you guys a call either way. Okay, Bryce, be safe. Bye, Josie said as he left. Bryce was up early the next morning and out the door before breakfast. He couldn't wait to get to Silver Lake and ask questions. He pulled into a diner before driving past Erin's last known address. The diner was pretty full, so he sat at the only available stool at the counter. Soon a waitress came by, handed him a menu, and poured him a cup of coffee. Cream and sugar? Yes, thank you. Do you need a few minutes? No, I'd like what he has, Bryce said, pointing to the stack of pancakes and a side order of 2 eggs and bacon of the man sitting next to him. Good choice, she said. Are you passing through? Asked the man, whose plate Bryce so admired. No, I'm here looking for the owner of this. I'd like to return it. He showed the man the driver's license and waited to see if he had any reaction to it. Don't know her. This license is 26 years old, so Erin would be about 50 now. I didn't grow up around here. Hey, Kim, I know you're probably too young, but have you ever heard of, let me see the license again, an Erin Dolby? Oh my gosh, my mom talks about her all the time. She was friends with her in high school. I'll call her and see if she wants me to send you over there. She'll want to know your name and why you're asking about Erin. Bryce told her how his brother found the driver's license and how he wanted to find out how it turned up at his brother's house. She went in the back and called her mom. Soon she came out and said, My mom said that she's going to call Erin's parents and see if they want to talk to you. They'll call us back in a bit. Bryce got his pancakes by now and settled in to enjoy his breakfast. About 10 minutes later, the phone rang. Kim crossed her fingers and went to answer the phone. Hello? They do? Okay. I will. Love you, Mom. Bye. Kim came out from the back and said, Mom was so excited that she called the Dolbys, and they very much want to talk to you. Great. Are they still at 54 Chestnut? Yes. Chestnut is 3 streets north of here. So where are you parked? Right across the street. Okay, go to the stoplight, make a left onto Route 15. Go 3 blocks and turn right on Chestnut. Their house is 2 blocks down. All the houses are numbered. You can't miss it. Thanks. I really appreciate this, Bryce said as he paid his bill. Anything to help the Dolbys find their daughter. Good luck. Bryce followed Kim's directions, and soon he was parked on the side of the street in front of 54 Chestnut. He felt a little nervous as he got out of his car and walked up to the porch. The front door opened, and Erin's parents stepped onto the porch. They were in their early 70s and looked good for their age. Bryce introduced himself, and they introduced themselves as Brenda and Kyle. Kim said you have a driver's license. May I see it? Brenda asked. Sure, Bryce said as he handed it to her. She had a shocked look on her face and asked, You say you found this. Where did you find it? My brother found it hidden in a shed on his new property. He was cleaning out the shed to get ready to burn it, and he found a purse with a wallet in it. There was nothing inside the wallet but this license. I have to sit down, Brenda said as she sat on the porch swing. One day, Erin was here, and the next day she was gone. We called the police and reported her as missing. The police searched for her. No one reported seeing her, and she never came back. She left one evening to go out dancing. Her car was found in a parking lot of a grocery store in the next town. She didn't pack a suitcase or anything. I think something bad happened to her. I think that someday she'll walk in the front door. We went on the local news asking if anyone had seen her. It was a horrible time. The newspapers covered it. Of course, you're too young to know about it. I guess you deserve to know that Erin was pregnant when she graduated from high school. She didn't show. No one knew about it, not even me. The months went by and she had a little boy. She stayed with us. We loved her too much to let her go, and we loved the little boy with all our hearts. Erin was a good mother. She got a job, and we happily watched the little guy. She loved that boy with all her heart. That's why I will never believe that she would just up and run off. I always thought something horrible had happened to her. She ran away? That's the conclusion the police finally came to. They told us young women with a baby and no husband run away all the time. We knew our baby would never run away, Brenda said with tears in her eyes. Kyle sat down next to her, held her hand, and said, Little Zach cried for his mommy every night, and we were right there crying with him. It's so sad and empty when your loved one disappears. We had no idea what could have caused her to run away. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I was hoping to find her alive and well. Did she ever tell you if she was dating someone? Maybe someone from Harperville? Bryce asked. Harperville? There is a place in Harperville named Twin Lakes. It's a place in the country to go fishing. They called them pay lakes back then. We went there dozens of times over the years. Erin loved to go with us, even when she was in high school. Sometimes she didn't fish as much as she liked to walk around the lakes, talk to people, and walk on the paths in the woods. We usually packed a picnic lunch and stayed for a few hours. After she had her little one, she took him fishing over there every weekend. He was way too little, of course, but she said the place was very calming to her, Kyle said. Can you draw me a map of the area and show me exactly where in Harperville this place is? Sure. I'll go in and get a paper and pencil. And where does your brother live? Brenda asked. He and his wife just moved into a rundown place on Old Harper's Road. That's interesting. Twin Lakes was on that road. There was a sign by the road and an arrow showing you where to turn in. It was really nice, lots of pine trees. We would drive in and stop next to a little pink trailer to the left of the drive and honk. A man would come out, collect our money, and move the chain from across the road. Then you drive back and find the lakes. You could fish at either lake, and both had picnic tables and iron grills. I don't think it's there anymore. I think they closed down in the 70s. Honey, do you remember when they closed Twin Lakes? Oh yes, some old lady lived on the property, died, so the family broke the land up into smaller parcels, Kyle said. I drew you this map. Kyle drew a main road through Harpersville and a long country road off of that. This is Old Harper's Road. It goes straight for about 2 miles and then veers off to the right. I'd say about a half a mile. Then it makes a sharp left. You follow that about another half mile and Twin Lakes was on the left. That's amazing. Those are the exact directions to my brother's house. Do you remember a red brick ranch? Oh, yeah, it was on the right as we drove back to the lakes. That's where the old lady lived. We drove by an old barn and shed too, Kyle said. I remember lots of trees and high grass and weeds, Brenda said. Did she ever tell you she lost her purse when she went fishing there? No, she didn't, Brenda said. I have 2 boxes of Brenda's things that I saved. Someday I plan on giving them to her son. He doesn't remember much about his mother. He was only 5 when she went missing. Let me get the boxes. Come on in. It's more comfortable inside. Brenda brought the boxes out and began to spread some items on the dining room table. Here's a couple of diaries. She liked to write things down. Have you read them, Brenda? No, I thought they were just too private. Maybe there's a clue to something, even who Zach's father is, Kyle said. I guess I never wanted to know. I never wanted to share him with another grandmother or even his father. I thought if she wanted us to know, she would have told us. I guess that's selfish of me, but I was very protective of Zach. Brenda handed Bryce a diary, and she and Kyle opened the other. The room was quiet as they searched for clues. A few minutes later, Brenda said, Oh no, this is dated June 13th, 1962. She was only 15. She writes about walking with her future husband at the lake. She says that she loves a guy named Zach with all her heart. Zach, that's her son's name. Oh no. Do you think this is Zach's father? Kyle said. She was only 15 when she wrote this. She had Zach 3 years later. Maybe she just liked the name. I'll read on. Later in June, she says, I can't wait to meet Zach at the lake. Every time we go there, I search for him. We hide in the trees, and he kisses me. I love older men. Zach says he's 23. He has a good job, so I want to marry him. Here are some pages with nothing but big hearts that say, Erin and Zach forever. We didn't let her date boys until she was 16. I don't remember her running off at the lake. She ate lunch with us all the time, didn't she, Brenda? I thought so, at least when she was younger. When she became a teenager, she hung around with some kids that lived across the lake. Not too often, though. She brought her friend Julie with us a few times. They never fished. They walked around the lake and explored nature. Brenda took a deep breath. Here she wrote in September, We haven't been to the lake since July. I sure miss Zach. He won't give me his phone number or tell me where he lives. I hope he loves me like I love him. I'm too sad to write anymore. Then she wrote, Too good to be forgotten. Puppy love, Kyle said. Yes, but it was very serious to her. And this Zach, being 23. He's a full-grown man, Brenda said sadly. She didn't write much else in this book, just pictures of hearts and crying clowns. Did she write anything in the book that you have, Bryce? Yes, this book starts in May 1963. It's too personal. You read it, Mrs. Dolby. Call me Brenda, she said as she opened the diary. I remember giving this to her on her birthday. That's why it starts in May. Here she says, I can't wait to go to the lake to see my love. I hope and pray he'll be there. Here's another entry in May. We went to the lakes and I searched for Zach. I never found him. I've been going out with Tony now for a few months. I like him, but my heart belongs to Zach. He's a real man and a better kisser. Here's one from August. You read it, Kyle. Okay. She wrote, I brought Tony out to the lake to see if Zach was there. I wanted to make him jealous and show him I wasn't going to wait around for him. He was there, and he saw us together. He stared at me. I just smiled and waved. I leaned over and gave Tony a kiss on the cheek. We fished for a couple of hours and then came home. Eat your heart out, Zach. Oh my, I feel like this is too private, Brenda. If the diaries can even give us a clue, we have to read them. I'll continue to read. A lot of the next pages is about school and Tony and Julie, her best friend. They are dated 1963. Then she skips to 1964. This entry is long. Here goes. We took Julie with us to the lake. She got to meet Zach. We hadn't seen each other for almost a year since I took Tony fishing. He seemed standoffish to me. I even think he was flirting with Julie. She and I walked to the other lake to look around, and on the path back, Zach jumped out of the trees and grabbed us. He held on to Julie after he let me go, and he stared at me over her shoulder. He had a funny look in his eyes. I never told Julie about me and Zach, so she didn't know he was taken. He let her go and turned and walked away without even saying goodbye or anything. Julie and I went back to sit with Mom and Dad. After lunch, Julie stayed behind while I ran to the outhouse. Well, when I was finished, I opened the door and Zach grabbed my arm and pulled me behind the outhouse and kissed me. He said, "Give me your phone number." I told him I didn't have anything to write on. He told me he would remember it. So I told him the number. We could hear people talking, so he ran off. When we were going to the car to leave, I could have sworn that I saw him with a group of people on the other side of the lake, in a cove. The next entry is in October 1964. She writes, "Just me and Dad went fishing early one morning. We drove to the farthest lake. Dad put his line in. I didn't want to fish, just sit and enjoy the cool weather. After a while, I saw Zach's car drive up and park on the other side of the lake. He got out of the car, stared at me, and went back to his car. I told Dad that I was going to go for a walk and I went to talk to him. He told me he was crazy about me and wanted to stop playing games. I told him I loved him. He said I had a funny way of showing it. He said I was nothing but a tease. We talked for a while longer, and the rest I can't write in this book. I told him I had to get back to my dad and I left. He wants to meet me at night. He said he would call me. I can't wait till I graduate next May so I can get married. I know he loves me." She didn't write again until January 1965. All she said was, "He called." February, she writes, "He called and asked me to meet him. I asked him if we could go out on Valentine's Day. He said he couldn't that day. He had to work. I asked him what he did for a living, and he wouldn't answer. He wanted to meet me a week later. We met in a grocery store parking lot in Harperville. I got in his car and we drove out to Twin Lakes. We snuck in and parked in a shed. The next week we did the same thing. He said, 'Twin Lakes will be our place, only for us. The old lady who lives there never hears us drive by. It's thrilling to be with Zach.' March, Zach hasn't called. April, not a word. May, going to graduate, and then I can be with him. June, too old for diaries. The end." Well, now we know who Zach's father is. We should be able to find a man named Zach who fished at Twin Lakes all the time. Someone has to know him, Bryce said. It's been a long time. Maybe Julie knows more about Zach. Julie got married and had a couple of kids. She's divorced now, Brenda said. It's a small town. We know everyone's business. I'll look her number up. Just a minute. I'm going to make some coffee too, Brenda said. Brenda called Julie and told her what was going on with Bryce showing up. Julie seemed like she didn't want to dig up the past, but she agreed to come over and tell them what she knew about Erin and Zach. Bryce and Erin's parents threw theories back and forth while they waited for Julie to come over. About 20 minutes later, Julie rang the doorbell. She hugged Brenda and Kyle and introduced herself to Bryce. I guess it's time I got a lot of this off my chest. I knew who Zach's father was. He knew it too. Erin hadn't heard from Zach since she got pregnant. So after she had her baby, she was frantic to get in touch with him. She thought that if he found out that she had his baby, he would marry her. The strange thing was, she didn't even know his last name. She confided in me, and we made a plan to find him. We figured he'd be at Twin Lakes someday, so we took turns staking the place out. I happened to be there one bright and early April morning. That would be in 1966, several months after Zach was born. There he was in all his glory with a couple of kids in tow. They went down to the lake, so I snuck over to his car, which he couldn't see from the lake, and I checked his registration card. I was shocked when I saw that his name was John Zachariewski, and that he only lived about a half mile from Twin Lakes. I was shocked. I couldn't wait to tell Erin, so I ran to my car and left. When I got to your house, I told her. She was furious. She felt she had been lied to, and of course she had. He played her for a fool. She ran to her car and drove out to Twin Lakes to see if she could confront him. I followed her because I didn't want her to kill him or anything. When she got out there, she parked by his car and waited. I got in the car with her. After what seemed like an eternity, Zach and the two boys came strolling up. Erin got out of the car and approached him. He told the two boys to go back down to the lake and look for a fishing pole he had left. They started to argue with him, and they called him Dad. He yelled at them, and they went down to the lake. Erin was furious. She screamed, "Dad, how many kids do you have?" And she yelled, "Are you married?" He had a very smug look on his face and said, "Of course I am. What did you think?" She told him that she thought when he found out that she had a baby, his baby, he would marry her. He looked shocked and said he didn't know she'd had a baby. He said they just had a little fun. He also asked her if she was sure the baby was his. At that point, she attacked him. Of course, he held her arms, and she began to cry. He told her he couldn't talk in public like this. He was going to take the kids home and meet her out on the road in 10 minutes. She believed him, and he left with the boys. About 15 minutes later, he met us on the road and pulled her to the side. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but they hugged. So I guess they made up. Julie rolled her eyes and continued. For the next couple of years, he met with her. Not too often, but just enough to appease her. She took little Zach with her some of the times. She told me that he loved his little boy and loved to see him. He told her he was unhappily married and he would leave his wife when he could and marry her. She was so gullible. I knew he wouldn't leave his wife, and when I told her my thoughts, she got mad at me. Sometimes she avoided me for months. Finally, I stopped calling her, and she never called me, so we parted ways, I guess. I saw her once, just about a month before she'd gone missing. I asked her how she was doing. She said she was fine and that I didn't need to worry about her. Truthfully, I didn't even think about her anymore. Anyway, she said that John was going to leave his wife when he heard the good news. She said it as she placed her hand on her stomach. I couldn't tell that she was pregnant. She still had on her favorite belt with the silver belt buckle. So it was either very early in her pregnancy or she was just pretending to be pregnant. I didn't want to get involved in her drama, so I wished her luck, and I went on my way. Since you found her driver's license in that shed, that's the first place I'd look for her. Do you think he killed her, Julie? Bryce asked. I think he was capable of it, a creepy liar. I'm sure she wasn't the only woman he strung along. Why didn't you tell the police? Kyle asked. I told them she was seeing John, and since there was no proof, and to them he seemed like an upstanding family man, the police thought she had just run off to get away from her responsibilities at home. Bryce shook his head and said, Well, I don't know what to do now. I think I should get more evidence before I go to the police. I'll talk to my brother and his wife and see what they want to do. We'll try to reason this out. I'm sorry I have to say this, Brenda and Kyle, but we will try to figure out what would be the easiest and fastest way to get rid of a body. If we can't find a shallow grave, we have no evidence. Kyle said, I have a friend who metal detects. Erin always wore a large silver belt buckle. If there is a silver belt buckle in the ground anywhere around where you found the purse, a metal detector will find it. I'll call him and tell him the story. Give us your number and your brother's number. I hope we can get out to your brother's house tomorrow. If anyone can find Erin, my friend can. I'll come with him. We have to find her. Even if we can't pin this on Zacharuski, at least we can give her a decent burial. My brother and his wife will be shocked when I tell them this story. All this was his wife Josie's idea. She said she had a bad feeling about the driver's license, and she was right. Well, I'm going now. Hopefully, I'll see you all tomorrow. Bryce drove straight to his brother's house. They were just sitting down to dinner, so Josie added a plate to the table for Bryce. He told them the story, and they were dumbfounded. I knew there was something very suspicious about that driver's license, Josie said. I can't believe you found out all that you did. You have always had a knack with people, brother. I'm glad they were willing to talk to you and open up about such a sensitive topic, Tim said. They spent the rest of the evening brainstorming. Bryce, you have experience with these kinds of situations. How should we treat this? Josie asked. Why don't we try to figure out what may have happened that night? Erin was pregnant. We know that. She thought when he found out, he would divorce his wife and marry her, which we all know would not have happened. Put yourself in his shoes. He got a high school girl pregnant. She never told her parents who he was or did anything to upset his apple cart. He could remain a married man with a family and have an adoring young woman at his beck and call, waiting for any crumb he would throw her. This affair was off and on for years. He was thrilled with the idea of sneaking around so close to home. The thought of being caught at any moment added to the thrill. Josie said, only as long as he was sure he would never be caught. Erin, on the other hand, actually believed his lies. She fantasized about life with him, buying a house, making it a home, decorating it. She daydreamed of making him breakfast and sending him off to work with her children standing next to her, waving to Daddy. She thought he would be elated when she told him she was pregnant with a second child. She just knew he would finally file for a quickie divorce and marry her. Tim chimed in. How's this scenario? They met in the parking lot of the grocery store. That's where her car was found. They drove out to Twin Lakes to be alone. They drove to their favorite spot, which was the shed, and he turned off the motor. He wants to get her in the back seat, but she wants to talk. She quickly drops the bomb of her pregnancy and waits for his reaction. He is furious, and he blames her for not being careful. She tells him that he has to marry her this time, or else she'll tell his wife. They have a huge fight. He says he will never leave his family, and she was just like any other easy tramp, just a good time. That's all, nothing else. What would a woman do in this situation, Josie? Bryce asked. I would get out of the car and find anything I could to hit him with. I'd try to kill him. Okay, so she gets out of the car. She's yelling at Zach. He gets out of the car to try to shut her up. The lights from the inside of the car light up the shed. She sees a metal pipe on the floor. She picks it up and swings it at his head and misses. He grabs it out of her hand and shoves her up against the wall. She screams. He has to shut her up, so he hits her in the head with the pipe and kills her. Okay, Bryce, what would you do with the body? Josie asked him. Let's go out to the shed and think about this. Bring a flashlight. It was almost dark by then, so Bryce drove his car into the shed as if it were trying to hide from the house. They realized that you couldn't see the shed from the house. It was hidden by the barn. This was the perfect spot, wasn't it? Josie said. Bryce pulled in and turned off the car. He got out and left the car door open so they could see how the shed looked with the small lights on. He went over and opened the passenger door. "It's pretty bright in here with the interior lights on," Josie said. "Just a thought. Did you find a pipe in here when you were cleaning the shed out?" Bryce asked Tim. "No, I threw the junk onto the pile to burn. I don't recall a pipe." "Just curious, if I had to get rid of a body, I never wanted it to be found, I would bury it." "How about throwing her down a well? This place has 2 wells," Tim suggested. "No, that seems too obvious to me. I think he snuck over to the barn and got a shovel. He might have buried her in the barn. Let's go over there." "No, I think it would have been too dark. Any lights would have shone through the barn windows. The old lady in the house could have seen the light. I think he was more familiar with the shed. The ground in here is dry and packed, but Zach was young and strong. He could dig a grave in here easily. My guess is that if she's buried on the property, he buried her where he couldn't have been seen doing it. I don't think he buried her in the woods because of the tree roots and tall grass. People walked in the woods and on the paths all the time. A fresh grave would have been too obvious. Yeah, I think he buried her in here and drove over the dirt a few times to pack it down and smooth it out like the rest of the shed floor." "That's sick," Josie said. "The whole thing is sick," Tim said. "I hope and pray that Kyle's friend can find something with his metal detector. She could have had brass buttons on her jacket. Hopefully she was wearing jewelry and her silver belt buckle," Bryce said. They were walking back to the house when Josie heard the phone ringing. She ran in and answered it. It was Kyle Dolby. He wanted to know if Bryce was there. Luckily, he still was. He told Bryce that his friend with the metal detector was so interested in the story that he had come over to their house to talk about it and to have a plan for the next day. "We've been brainstorming over here. My friend Simon is so anxious to get over to your brother's place that he wanted me to call you and see if it was all right if we show up very early. How about 6 o'clock? "I'm sure it'll be fine," Bryce said. "See you tomorrow." Bryce turned to Tim and Josie and said, "They are very anxious to start hunting for Erin, so they'll be here bright and early in the morning, 6 o'clock. I think they have something up their sleeves. This is exciting. I can't wait till tomorrow." "Bye, Bryce," Josie said as Bryce was walking out the kitchen door. She turned to Tim and said, "I'm going to look up John Zacharuski in our phone book. Bryce said he lived on this road when he knew Erin." Josie turned the pages of the phone book all the way back to the Z's. "Here he is, and he lives at 310 Old Harbor Road. Let me write down his phone number. Do you want to give him a prank call? I could say, 'I saw what you did, and I know who you are.'" No, we're not going to call this guy. He probably has caller ID. We could do star 69. Don't forget, Josie, he killed one person that we know of, and he lives right down the road. 3 or 4 houses down this road could be pretty far away. Well, let's drive down and find 310. Just think, a murderer lives by us. Well, he's an old man now. He's probably harmless. Josie, think. He is only in his 50s. I'm sure he could still be a threat. I'm curious. Get in the car. It runs quieter than your truck, Josie said as she handed Tim his keys and walked out the door. The closest neighbor was about 200 yards away. Their mailbox read 304. They passed a cornfield, and the next mailbox was 306. They turned a sharp corner to the right, and the next mailbox off the road was in front of an old farmhouse with no number. Try the next mailbox, Josie said. They drove a bit. There it is. 310. The driveway goes back into the trees. I can't see anything. We'll check it out tomorrow. I'm going to turn around the driveway. See if you can see anything in our headlights. Turn the lights off and drive back. People do it at our house all the time. Okay, Tim said reluctantly. He turned the lights off and they crept down the road. In the moonlight, Josie could see a house. A light was on inside, but she couldn't see anyone moving around. A dog began to bark, so Tim put the car in reverse. Oh my gosh, someone is looking out the window, Josie said as she scrunched down in the seat. Look, a dark van's parked over there. Oh my gosh, Tim, your face is showing in the dash lights. Let's get out of here. Tim backed up as fast as he could. He drove past their driveway in case they had been seen by anyone. They drove a couple of miles down the road, sat for a minute or two, then turned around and went back home. That was exciting, Josie said as they got ready for bed. Set the alarm for 5 a.m. Let's get some sleep. Josie felt nervous. She got up and made sure the back door was locked. She locked the door to the basement, and she closed and locked all the windows. The next day, at 6 o'clock on the nose, 3 cars drove up. Josie and Tim went outside to meet them. They were so surprised when they saw a sheriff's car pull in first. Then came Bryce, and then after him the car with Brenda, Kyle, and Julie. We didn't know your friend was a sheriff, Bryce said to Kyle as they walked out to greet them. They all stood in a large circle and discussed where they found the purse and where Simon should begin to metal detect. They all agreed that the shed was the best place. Simon began searching inside the shed. Bryce and Kyle watched as the others stood outside. They discussed other possible places that Zach could have hidden Erin's body. Did anyone think he could have thrown her down that well over there? Julie asked as she pointed to a well with a hand pump on the far side of the property line. Bryce thought that was too obvious, Josie said. You know, when we used to come out here, I distinctly remember passing another barn farther out on the other side of that fence. We could try over there, Brenda said. I'll tell Simon, Josie said as she walked in the shed. Brenda said that there used to be a barn on the other side of the fence. It's not our property, but I'm sure whoever owns it won't care if we snoop around. Just a minute, I have a hit, Simon said as he bent down to dig up something. No, just more trash. After 20 minutes and lots of old nails later, Simon found nothing of consequence. So where is this other old barn? He asked. They walked over to the break in the fence line where the old road to the lakes went through. It was right over there, Kyle said as he pointed to the spot. They walked through high weeds, scrub trees, and brambles. In just a few yards, they found the charred remains of the old barn. Looks like the barn burned down. Or was burned down on purpose, Kyle said. This would be a messy sight. But I think we could be onto something here, Simon said. Simon kept digging up old cans, nails, hinges, and other junk. He finally got a very solid hit. Look at this, Simon said, as he dug up a lead pipe. He swung the metal detector over the hole and kept getting small hits. He carefully dug and sifted through the dirt. He dug up a metal button, the kind that fastens jeans. He carefully brushed the dirt away and found a tarnished silver buckle. We made up a scenario where Erin tried to hit Zach with a pipe, and he turned it on her. This could be the murder weapon, Bryce said. That has to be her belt buckle. It's tarnished, but it's in the shape of a butterfly. That's hers, said Kyle, with tears in his eyes. She was our sweet baby girl. She didn't deserve to be left in a hole like this. Simon moved the dirt carefully and began to find bones. This is the grave for sure, Kyle. I would like to find the skull. I think you and Brenda should go back to the house and wait. No, we've waited all these years. We'll just step back a few feet. But we want to be here. Okay then. Bryce, you help me brush the dirt away. Careful now. I want to see if the skull shows the cause of death. They didn't have to dig very deep before they found the skull. Just like they thought, the side was caved in. He had hit her in the head with the lead pipe. They put the skull back how they found it and covered it back up. They pulled the grasses over the top and some charred boards. They wanted it to look like the body hadn't been disturbed. "I think we have all we need for now," Simon said. "We have to get a forensic team out here to investigate and gather any remains they can to give her a proper burial. We have to tie him to the murder. Any DNA would be lost by now. Last night we thought up a scheme to get him to come out and dig up the remains," Simon said. "Oh, you still have the black purse, don't you?" Bryce asked. "Yes, we do," Tim said. "Don't open it, and don't touch the wallet. Why didn't we think of this before? There could be fingerprints inside the purse." "Great idea," Simon said. "We'll bag it and put it in my car, along with your belt buckle and button. I'll pull my car in the barn, and Bryce, you and Kyle park yours in the shed and close the doors." "Do that, and then we need to make up a plan. We have to figure out how to get him back here." The group went up to the house and dreamed up a trap for Zacharuski. Everyone thought it would be best if Bryce took Tim's truck and paid Zacharuski a call and lured him over. Simon hid in the tall grass, and the rest of the group stayed inside away from the windows. Bryce drove on over and knocked on Zach's door. A dog began to bark, and then a man answered the door. Bryce was his good old boy self. He introduced himself as Tim Hutchins. He told him he had just bought the place up the road, and he wanted to meet his neighbors. He said he also had an ulterior motive. He needed advice. "Oh, you're the guy who bought part of Twin Lakes," Zacharuski said, never taking a cigarette out of his mouth. Bryce could tell that Zach had been handsome in his day. Now he was a bit puffy, and his bright blue eyes were bloodshot, and he squinted from the cigarette smoke irritating his eyes. "I bought the section with the brick ranch." Bryce continued the conversation. He asked him for advice on what he should do with his land, like the best place to dig a garden. He said he got in touch with the man who bought the land behind him, and they wanted to go together and plant an orchard. All the sought-after advice had to do with digging in the ground. Zacharuski seemed interested in where Tim wanted to dig, so he said he would follow Tim home. "Brenda, you know Bryce is a state trooper, right?" Josie asked. "Sure, we checked him out yesterday. We have to get away from the windows now, so Zach doesn't see any movement in the house." "Good idea," Kyle said. Just a couple of minutes after they took their places, Bryce drove into the driveway, followed by a dark van. Zach got out of his van and said, "Man, this brings back memories. I haven't been here since they closed the place down. It's been deserted for a couple of years. I heard some of the old lady's grandkids used to live in the house." "Come back here by the fence line. We plan on planting trees on both sides of the road, all the way back to the big lake. To the right of the old road, we want to plant grapes." "Well, I would put the grapes on the left side of the road. You'll need some kind of a building to house your chemicals and equipment. A shed with a good concrete floor. There used to be an old barn over there. It burned down. I could see the smoke from my house. That spot would be perfect for a shed," Zach said, as he pointed to the spot where the burned rubble was hiding under the tall weeds and grass. "I plan to tear down my shed," Bryce said, "but on second thought, it would be a perfect place to store chemicals and other equipment. Why build a new one? We can shore this one up. It can go for probably another 50 years. We thought the old barn area would be perfect for grapes. My wife's brother has a backhoe. He plans on coming out here either tomorrow or the next day and push all the rubble from the old barn into a pile. Then he's going to grade the land a bit, scrape off a few inches of soil to even it out, and get rid of the old barn debris. Then he'll tear out all the small trees and put them all in a pile to burn." "Oh, sounds like this place is getting a real facelift. I don't think we'll recognize it when you guys are finished. Well, who is your neighbor anyway? It's Dr. Cochran. He lives in town, of course. I think he bought the property for a future home site next to the lake. He has no intention of building back there for several years, probably when he retires. Do you think this land here is good to have a melon patch? Bryce asked as he pointed to the area on Tim's side of the fence. Oh, yeah, great. Close to the well for water. Look, I just remembered. My wife was making lunch. I better get home before she misses me. Good luck with the property, Tim. Zach left quickly. They think he took the bait. We all should go home now and take a nap. I don't expect him to come and try to dig up Erin's remains until after midnight, but I want to be in place by 10:30. I figure he'll walk through the fields and come in over the fence. He may cut the barbed wire, but the fence is so old and run down, I think he'll probably just be able to step over it. We set the trap. Now all he has to do is step into it, Simon said. We'll meet back here at 10 o'clock to hide the cars and catch a murderer, Kyle said. I won't be coming back tonight, but I wish you all the best. Be careful. He's a ruthless man, Julie said. Josie and Tim were too excited to nap. They couldn't wait until it was over. Later that night, Kyle drove in and parked in the shed. He was alone when he came up to the house. Brenda didn't want to come. She thought she would just be in the way. Bryce drove in and parked in the shed behind Kyle. He closed the doors and put padlocks on them, just in case Zach snooped around. He may have remembered putting the purse in the shed and come looking for it. Simon parked the squad car in the barn. Josie's car was in the barn, and Tim's truck was parked outside. Everything looked quiet. The moon was almost full. It was a perfect night to dig up a grave. At 10:30, Bryce and Simon hid in the tall grass about 100 feet from the charred remains of the barn. Josie, Tim, and Kyle sat at the kitchen table in total darkness and waited. 2 hours ticked by. It seemed like an eternity. Then Bryce heard some rustling at the fence line. He saw a tall, dark figure come through the fence with no problem and moved quickly to the shed. He tried the door, but couldn't get past the padlocks. He walked back to the area of the old barn and got down on his hands and knees. He couldn't be seen until he turned on a headlamp, face down, so he could search out the spot and not be seen. The dull glow of the light moved around a very small area. After a short time, Bryce and Simon heard a clang. Bryce knew it had been the lead pipe. Zach knew the skeleton remains were under the pipe. When he buried the body, he threw the pipe in at the last minute. He tossed the pipe to the side. He seemed to be digging quite carefully. Then he stooped down and began to collect the bones and put them in a sack. He rooted around for a while to get all the bones. Then he stood up and used the shovel to fill the hole back in. He stomped down on some grass over the hole to try to hide the spot. He grabbed the bag with Erin's remains and headed for the fence line. Bryce cut him off and shone a flashlight into his eyes. Zach turned and ran the other way. Simon was waiting for him. He tried to tackle Zach, but he kicked Simon in the stomach. Bryce was close behind and tackled Zach. They fought in the darkness until Simon jumped in. It took the two men to wrestle Zach to the ground. Simon handcuffed him, and the struggle was over. Read him his rights, officer, Simon said as he pushed Zach in Bryce's direction. Put him in the back seat of my car. I'll be there in a minute. Simon went up to the house, carrying the sack. It's all over. We got him. He tried to dig up all the evidence. He even tried to get in the shed. I can't believe he left the purse in there all these years. He was cocky, and he probably thought he was invincible, Kyle said. And he put up a good fight. I'm taking the sack with me as evidence. I have to take him in now. I'll call you tomorrow and tell you what's going on. You can go home now and tell Brenda it's finally over. Thank you, Simon. We'll be waiting for your call. We want to put our baby to rest." Kyle turned to Josie and Tim and said, "I want to especially thank you two for finding the driver's license. So many people would have just thrown it away. It's because of you two and your brother that we finally have closure, and a murderer will finally get his punishment. Brenda and I will be eternally grateful. Thanks, guys." Kyle walked out to the shed as Bryce was unlocking and opening the doors. He thanked Bryce, and they embraced. Kyle was crying as he left. Bryce went up to the house and said goodbye to Josie and Tim. He wanted to get to the station and support Simon. The forensic team showed up the next day. They found a few more bones, and they actually found Zach's fingerprints inside the purse and a partial print inside the wallet. Little Zach flew up from New Mexico to attend his mother's memorial service. He stayed 2 weeks to visit his grandparents. He did not visit his father in prison, nor did he attempt or have the desire to see any of Zach's family. He finally knew for sure that his mother did not run away and that she never stopped loving him. Tim tore down the old shed, and they put up a private drive sign at the beginning of the driveway. The town put up a street light on the road across from their home to deter parkers. Josie felt a lot safer. Zacharewski's wife divorced him even before the trial. The newspapers had a heyday with the story. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without the chance of parole. Erin rests in peace in a beautiful cemetery with an angel overlooking her grave.